Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. For real.
What's up, fellas? Another day, another dollar here on the Total BS podcast. Justin, what's going on?
What's shaking? Obviously, Saul didn't get the football memo. I'm wearing the Chargers gear. Corey's rocking the Cowboys gear, and you're still rocking the Suns purple.
Yo, I gotta rep that Al McCoy stuff, baby.
Oh,
Al McCoy.
get your
Legend,
merch,
baby. Yeah, you gotta get your merch. You can go to Sadaka.com right there, /Sun Solar Panel, and get all your Suns merch. There you go. Corey, what's cracking?
Man, not a whole lot, just in that little mourning period. No more NBA, weeks away from the NFL and college football. It's a weird time for a guy like me.
Yeah,
for sure. And you're rocking the throwback Dez Bryant jersey.
Greatest
throwback.
What happened? This is a throwback, baby. I bought this, never wore it, and I figured, heck, I might as well rock it today. Brand new, crispy in the back of the closet. So we're good.
Speaking of Dez Bryant, my boy Craig LeBlanc out there in Texas is working out. They call it the two night crew out there doing some training for a lot of these athletes and these receivers, getting them prepped for the season upcoming. So shout out to Craig LeBlanc. Also, speaking of the NFL, the COVID. COVID testing has taken a quite the turn this week, whereas the NFL basically said that if a team has a certain amount of people that are restricted from playing and the team cannot play in a game, then they forfeit that game. There is no rescheduling, which is kind of a roundabout way of forcing players to get vaccinated. Thoughts on that, starting with you, Justin?
I am totally about it. I think this is a great incentive for the NFL to get everybody vaccinated, and it's just an incentive. And unfortunately, you have a lot of people pushing back on it, like DeAndre Hopkins tweeted and then deleted, pretty much him questioning the vaccine and his future in the NFL. You saw the Minnesota Vikings offensive line coach get dismissed because he didn't want to take the COVID-19 vaccine. Then the Patriots offensive line coach, I think, resigned because he didn't want to take the COVID-19 vaccination. And I think the NFL right now is just at a point right now where it's like, okay, listen, we are your employer. If you simply don't want to take this shot or this vaccine, that's fine. You just can't work here. And so I think putting all these hurdles in front of the unvaccinated is going to eventually lead them to get vaccinated and finally study the science, trust the advice from credentialed officials, right? These people all have medical degrees. And I'm getting so sick and tired of people who don't have medical degrees tell us what is right with the COVID vaccine and what is wrong about it. So I'm happy that the NFL is doing this, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the lockers moving forward.
There's an important distinction before we get to Corey. There's an important distinction between coaches and players, okay? Coaches do not fall under the NFLPA, so the NFL cannot mandate that they take a vaccine. That's why they're saying the forfeiture of games, which ultimately leads to forfeiture of paychecks. If you don't play in a game and you forfeit it, guess what? You lose out on some money. Coaches
for both teams.
Yeah. The coaches, no, not for both teams. It's the team that gets penalized. So, for instance, let's just say the Cardinals had 50% of their team that came down with COVID, so they couldn't play, but the Cowboys were ready to go. Like, they wouldn't punish the Cowboys. The Cardinals would forfeit that game. They would take the L. That's how that would work.
I read differently.
Yeah. So also, coaches don't follow under the NFLPA. They are actual NFL employees, and the NFL has mandated that they get the vaccine. That's why these coaches are retiring or withdrawing, because they don't want to be forced to take the vaccine because it is mandated for them all to do so. So an important distinction there when it comes to the players versus the coaches. Corey, your thoughts on this?
It's interesting. I'm a big fan of reality, and there are scientific realities that cannot be argued with. And in this country, there are financial realities. And what you see are business owners who took a loss last year. The NFL completed over 270 games last year during a pandemic. Some were postponed or delayed, but they went through and completed them all. Players were paid, the games were on TV, but the owners missed out on revenue from ticket sales and parking and all that kind of stuff. So the owners are kind of like, you know what? We took an L last year. We're not going to take an L this year. If you don't want to be on board, then you're going to share in this L. We're not issuing game checks because people don't want to put us in the best situation to be successful as a business. My niece is in the medical field in the hospital that she works at. Same mandate. If you're not vaccinated by September 1st, you no longer work here. So it's interesting. Everyone's allowed their opinion. It's hard to argue with science. And even though you have an opinion and people talk about freedom and this is America and I have a right to my opinion, even if it's uneducated, that's fine. But what you don't have is a right to impact someone's business. People have the freedom to run their businesses however they choose. So this is a very interesting nexus of those two ideals, which it's in, you step back a little bit larger, the people in this bubble are all kind of in the same group. The people who have hesitations about the vaccine are the same people screaming about freedom and the rights of the corporate America. Corporate America is flexing its muscle and saying, this is how we want to operate. And if you don't like it, you don't have to work here. And I don't know what could be more American than that sentiment.
You know, it's kind of crazy. You know, when we look at this, I'm not sympathetic to those who want to spout nonsense at me about the COVID vaccine. I'm not sympathetic to that at all, especially if you're like, well, I heard. Well, you didn't hear that from somebody that was a reputable official. I know that.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm sympathetic because I do think that we all should have a choice, right? And if somebody genuinely feels uneasy, now, and Corey, you know this, in the past, okay, there was a lot of experiments, especially when it came to vaccines in the Black community that did not go well at all. Okay. Vaccines that were given unknowingly to African Americans to test something. And that's been widely documented. And so there's a fear there, right? And obviously not every person that's anti-vax right now is a Black person. Obviously, I'm just using that as an example of something to where people are using this argument of, we don't know what the long-term effects of this vaccine are going to be. You know, is it going to lead to dementia down the road, or is it going to lead to Alzheimer's or whatever? We have no idea. But what we do know is the short-term effects of COVID itself and how significant it could be, individual to individual. So there's a certain game that you're playing, and the science is telling us that this vaccine is very effective at preventing, or not preventing, but limiting the implication of COVID should you get it. And I think that's what, and you're right, Corey, it's about business, right? The other thing that people are not paying attention to is how many tests is the NFL having to administer on an everyday basis for those that are unvaccinated, and how much money is that costing each team per day, per week, per month? And I'm pretty sure it's in the millions, and I'm pretty sure that the NFL's like, dude, we're tired of fronting this bill for people that are not taking care of themselves and don't want to take care of the people around them. I'm sympathetic to the fact that maybe somebody's cautious about taking the vaccine because they're worried what that's going to mean to them long term. I get it. I understand that. But the science is saying otherwise. And there's so many other instances when players are taking PEDs, players are putting other stuff into their bodies that they don't know what's going to have a long-term effect on, supplements, vitamins, any other kinds of medication that people are willingly going to take because they know it's going to make them feel better right away. But politically, this has changed the COVID thing. And it's manifested itself into these many different ways, and people don't know how to separate the two. And I think that's what's causing the problem. And that's why you're seeing places like the Alabama governor who rejected federal help for door-to-door education in her own state for people to get the vaccine, now coming out yesterday or 2 days ago and saying, y'all that are unvaccinated, y'all need to get the shot. Like,
in that voice too.
Yeah, just like that.
It's amazing to me as I look at our society and look at our community. I'll come back to that word a little bit later, but it's amazing to me. Science doesn't care whether you believe in it or not.
Yeah. Science
doesn't have a political affiliation. Gravity is real, regardless of your political party. Virology and the study of viruses is real and scientific, regardless of your religious beliefs. So how long are people supposed to stand around and argue with you about science? At a certain point, people want to get on with their lives. Yeah. And I use the word community because we are a community. The NFL wants to function. It wants to have games. It wants to have fans in the stadium. And at some point, we rely on everyone to pitch in and do their part. The guys on the field need to be in a situation where they're not spreading a virus. The fans want to be in a situation where they're not contracting or spreading a virus. Everybody wants to move forward for football to be successful, both as entertainment and the financial side. And when you start to think about the type of community that we are, everyone depends on everyone else. And what you find is Americans are extremely selfish. We like to just think of ourselves. Yeah. I don't want to worry about how my decision may affect the community. Now you have governors who realize that industries, travel, everything is affected by the COVID virus. And these unvaccinated people now represent an obstacle. 6-7 months ago, these people represented freedom and liberty and personal determination and all the bumper sticker quotes they wanted to throw at it. They were looked at as some type of heroes, and now they're looking at people that are in the way of progress and getting us back to normal. And like you mentioned, Saul, the pendulum is swung full, and now people are realizing in order for us to move forward as a community, we all have to get on the same page. Yeah. And one more thing I'd like to add, when you talk about how businesses are run, Chick-fil-A is not open on Sunday because the owner of the company has religious beliefs where he doesn't want to be open on Sunday. If you work at Chick-fil-A, no matter how bad you want to work on Sunday, it's not an option that's available to you as an employee. Mm-hmm. He exercises that right, his full right as a private business owner. There's nothing unconstitutional about that man dictating the hours of his chain. The same way the NFL can say, we want everybody to be vaccinated in order to work here. There's no difference between the two. People who try to pretend there's a difference are just simply foolish and trying to argue for the sake of arguing. We see this all the time. And the last thing I'll say, I don't have to be a virologist to feel good and make decisions that I want. Every day I drive on roads that I didn't build. I work in buildings that I didn't know how to construct. I drive across bridges I don't know how to make. I drive a car that I have no idea how to build. I rely on the knowledge of other people 1,000,000 times a day in my own personal life. And when it comes to the vaccine, I'm not a virologist, I'm not a scientist, but at some point, I have a friend, we all know James, I have a friend who is a virologist, a cancer research doctor. You have to rely on the knowledge of other people. Yeah. And I know it's a little bit different, but when you really think about it, if you're not a specialist in an area and then you turn to the specialists and they're all in consensus, some people still have questions or don't want to trust that. That's their decision, but you don't get to decide where you're going to work.
Unfortunately, you got the people who are just going to constantly spew out conspiracy theories, and they're going to believe what they want to believe. And they already have their minds made up when it comes to the vaccine. And that's why it is just so hard, because using that term society again, we all can't agree on one thing. And I get it, the vaccine, I mean, we're simply just not going to agree on this. But I look at it on the flip side. We get the vaccine because we're smart enough to trust these medical and government officials, but we took it because we want to get back to normal life. Honestly, if they don't want to take the vaccine, then let them not take the vaccine. They're going to have to deal with the repercussions, whether you're a professional athlete or not. And so that's why I can understand why some of these NFL players are getting upset. Like, okay, well, the vaccine is optional. It's been around for several months now. If we don't want to take it, why should we get penalized for it?
Well, I empathize with that. I also know that, I don't know if you guys saw this, but in France, President Macron basically came out and said, I'm done with this. I'm absolutely done with this. I'm done with.
I think we all are.
Well, he said he's done with all the unvaccinated making such an effect on his country. So he is instituting new laws and new rules to where if you have to take a COVID test to travel, you have to pay for that out of your own pocket. You will no longer be allowed to go to movie theaters or large gatherings or concerts or games if you are unvaccinated. He is implementing those laws in his country because he's tired of the vaccinated people being punished, even though they're the safer ones. Because, scientifically, you're in a safer position if you're vaccinated, right? As opposed to unvaccinated. And so, I don't know where that's going to lead here. I know there's going to be a lot of strife, but also in a lot of these unvaccinated areas, there's a certain demographic that goes along with that. There's a lot of people that believe in a certain, they believe something, and I don't know what that something is. I'm just going to just leave it general like that. And I wonder how much politically this is going to change, because you're starting to see a lot of politicians that did not prior support the vaccine or at least spew the messaging and the promotion of the vaccine now get on board with it and say you need to get vaccinated. And I wonder politically if they're starting to see trends that could affect voting and things of that nature in the future. And that's why they're like, man, we're kind of hurting ourselves because of these dudes. For instance, let's just take this, for instance, and I'm not Democrat or Republican in this matter, but Georgia, right? The presidential vote, it was like won by 4,000, I believe, something like that, right? Imagine an area that's heavily Republican that has a lot of people that are unvaccinated. And let's just say there's 100,000 people that are unvaccinated and just 5,000 of them die or 1,000 of them die. You just lost that many more votes, right? And so it's something to think about in terms of the politics of all this.
And Saul, I will just say this, and you kind of hinted around it. I'll just dive right into it. There's no secret that Alabama is a red state.
Mm-hmm.
If Nick Saban has to forfeit against Tennessee, there's a COVID outbreak.
Oh, you tell folks in the SEC you get the vaccination, they're getting it by next week. If they need the vaccinations for college football to be completely normal, they're getting it next week.
It is a deeply red state, and I'm sure it's a deeply unvaccinated state, and these people will kill you over Alabama football. Mm-hmm. So now you have this nexus of I'm not getting no government vaccine, roll tide. They don't connect. And this is exactly what you guys have been talking about. What do you do with this person who's saying, I'm not getting the vaccine, but there's no way we should have to forfeit a game in SEC football? Alabama football makes over $50 million a year. I mean, this is where we are. And so people have to understand, in order to have an entertainment, you love your college football, you love your pro sports. The Milwaukee Bucks had a monstrous parade. They had 60,000 people out there for Game 6. The communities need that revenue. The fans need that release after the pandemic. All signs are pulling towards normalcy. And what's happened now is the unvaccinated now represent the flies in the ointment, and their whole look has changed dramatically within the past few months.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Speaking of not seeing eye to eye, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. It was the only way I could segue that. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, apparently they had offered him a massive extension, which would have made him the highest paid player in all of football history, and he declined, and basically saying, I don't care how much money you pay me. I think he even didn't he tweet a Last Dance reference? It's just kind of funny.
Him and Devontae Adams.
Aaron Rodgers potentially not coming back to the Green Bay Packers, period. And it doesn't look good for the Pack. Corey, you're a Cowboys fan, but you also understand the power that a player in his position has. What is your whole read on this?
It's an interesting situation. A guy like LeBron James has millions and millions of Twitter followers. He has merch. He has advertising campaigns. His leverage comes from his massive off-the-court presence. He has a tremendous on-the-court presence as well. Aaron Rodgers does not have LeBron James' media base. His leverage comes strictly from what he does between those white lines. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. So he doesn't have to, unfortunately for him, he's made a ton of money as well. So he's not putting political pressure on Green Bay. This is personal. I don't like the way you treated me. I don't like the things that were said to me. I'm out. No amount of money can fix this. This is a character issue, and it's not really a flex. People say it's petty. He's not demanding that anybody be fired. He's being very diplomatic about it. He hasn't said a whole lot, but he just wants out. The people around him know why he wants to leave. And I can't think of a worse existence than to be the front office executive that was responsible for Aaron Rodgers leaving after you offered him a bag full of money.
Yeah.
How do you even go to the grocery store in Wisconsin? You probably are going to need security from that point forward for the rest of your life, because he's saying, after everything I've done, after years and years of not having any help, I still have us in NFC championship games. And you guys want to keep that line of front office and player. You want to keep me in this lane. And I'm glancing over and seeing my contemporaries be included in franchise building decisions and processes. And I haven't been treated with that same respect. How does Patrick Mahomes, who's done 15% of what I've done in my career, how does he have that sway in Kansas City and I don't have it with y'all? That to an OG is inexcusable. He's got more years behind him than ahead. So he's made his stand. And I got to say, without knowing the details of why he's mad, I appreciate the way he's conducting himself. He's not speaking on it. He's just not going to show up.
Yeah. He's just hanging out in Hawaii with Miles Teller, just living his best life, wearing a man bun and doing whatever he can.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Hey,
ain't nothing wrong with that.
Hey,
are you a man bun guy, Saul?
Hell no. But
okay.
Hey, I won't mind. I won't mind hanging out with Miles Teller by the beach
in Hawaii for sure.
Kicking in Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah.
And let me echo one other thing. In terms of poker, it's not a bluff. If he doesn't suit up, you have 54 other people in the locker room who know what that team's supposed to function like with him on the team.
Yeah.
I can't imagine showing up for work and there's no Aaron Rodgers. So we're just supposed to go out here and hope to go 8-9. Maybe if we're lucky, we're going to go 8-9. He should be here. The resentment, the lack of leadership, the vacuum, that's going to be huge. His presence will crater. His absence will crater that organization from the locker room all the way up to the front office.
I'll tell you what, Jordan Love better become the next coming of Patrick Mahomes, because he better be worth all this mess, because he's a big part of it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a franchise guy. He's taken the Green Bay Packers to the Super Bowl. And for all the times that we've criticized Green Bay and how they functioned in the offseason, not getting Aaron Rodgers the help around him, they still found their way to in the NFC Championship game and have deep playoff runs. But this whole thing is deeper than football. It's deeper than money. What you just said right there about that line between Aaron Rodgers and the front office, when they drafted Jordan Love, which, by the way, is the first offensive player the Green Bay Packers drafted in like 8 or 9 years in like the first 2 rounds. So in the first couple rounds, they're not looking to get Aaron Rodgers any help. But when they drafted Jordan Love, they didn't even tell Aaron Rodgers that they were going to do that. Whereas you look at the Chicago Bears, Nick Foles, they told him that they were going to take Justin Fields in the draft. That's Nick Foles, not Aaron Rodgers. At least what you can do as a front office is give him the courtesy. Listen, you're our guy, you're our franchise quarterback, but we want to get this younger guy that you can groom and have sit behind you. That way, when your time is up, we can then install him. They didn't even give him that.
I think it's even more than that, though. And I would say this, for a player to be that unhappy, it's more than just that one decision. It has to be a culture that he is just not vibing with whatsoever. The demeanor, the approach, the way people come at you, the way they talk to you. Respect goes more than just one decision, right? It's not only that one decision, but how did they play off that decision after the fact or before? Did he ask about this and then they were like, no, you're good, and then they just straight up lied and then they drafted a quarterback? Or afterwards, when he's like, you guys drafted the quarterback, that's cool. Well, you're not going to be here forever. Like, dude, what? Like, what? Like, it's got to be more than just the one thing. When you look at something like this, it's a series of events that lead up to something like this. It just is. It's not one instance. It's an accumulation. And I think Aaron Rodgers just is tired of feeling, it's so crazy. He is the man in Wisconsin. And clearly Barkley is back there and he's upset about this whole situation as well for Aaron Rodgers. But it's an accumulation, and it's somebody that's just really upset about the culture that has been formed around him. So
yeah, and to your point, Saul, succession plans are necessary. Every franchise has to have a succession plan. The problem with your succession plan normally is that it starts way too late, because the player is such an impactful player. They've got the love of the fans. The front office drags their heels and gets started on the succession plan way too late in the game because they don't want to offend the player that's currently still showing up. But in this situation, they started it in a timely fashion. They just seem to have botched the communication. We all know Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play forever, but Aaron Rodgers went through this with Brett Favre. If you look at guys like Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady with Jimmy G, that was a succession plan that was a couple seasons too soon, obviously. Belichick realized this guy's still the man, and now Jimmy G's in San Francisco playing horribly, and Brady's down there with the Lombardi Trophy, and you got Cam Newton fumbling the ball on 4th and goal. So you got to start your succession plan, talk to your superstar, and be men about it. And Justin, I'm so glad you got to watch The Last Dance, because now you understand what we witnessed as Bulls fans with Jordan and Krause. Why does Phil Jackson have to go? There was no reason he had to go. You wanted to initiate a succession plan, and the Bulls were coming off a three-peat. They could have won at least 2 more titles with that same team. But the Bulls fans had to stomach our whole organization being blown to bits because of one man's ego. That's exactly what's about to happen in Green Bay.
That's crazy.
It's honestly it's a trickle down effect because Devontae Adams, their star wide receiver, has completely stalled all contract extension talks. And this is one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. And now Green Bay, they got a whole mess on their hands because now their star quarterback doesn't want to come back, and their star wide receiver's like, no, let's pump the brakes on me staying here for a while.
And who does he work out with during the summertime? Who is he friends with? Who's he represented by? This will have a ripple effect. Green Bay will not be a destination for top free agents because, hey, when I come out of that route and the ball's not there because Jordan Love don't know what he's doing, I don't want to play with that. Aaron Rodgers, all I got to do is run my route. That ball's going to be there. And these guys know I make a lot of money playing with Aaron Rodgers. Offensive lines know, running backs know, wideouts know, tight ends know. What Aaron Rodgers does pre-snap, it will take Jordan Love 6 or 7 years to compile that type of intellect pre-snap. Because Aaron Rodgers can come up to the line, see what your defensive coordinator's drawn up, pick it apart, audible, and get a first down. Jordan Love is years from that. Only the greats can do that. Manning, Brady, Breeze, those are the guys that have played in the NBA longer than most guys have been defensive coordinators. They've seen everything, and you're just going to cast that aside and put Jordan Love out there, albeit in a weak division, he's still going to struggle. Yeah. So I feel bad for Packers fans because this doesn't have to be this way. I don't know who is in the front office that needs to get fired, but it doesn't seem like a difficult call for me.
And I feel bad for Jordan Love, too.
Yeah, I mean,
I do, because he's just sitting there getting shitted on for pretty much just being a quarterback and doing his job.
Aaron Rodgers was in the same position, bro.
But Aaron hasn't spoken negatively about Jordan the same way Favre didn't embrace Aaron Rodgers, but anybody never spoke back. He knew Aaron Rodgers was the next man up.
Yeah.
And he toyed around with the organization and retired and unretired, did all this crazy sloppy stuff instead of just stepping aside gracefully with Aaron Rodgers. But you're right. Jordan Love, unfortunately, his name will be attached to the story in a way that he probably doesn't want. He'll be a trivia question. Who was the bum quarterback that cost Green Bay?
That's so disrespectful.
No,
what if he turns out to be something?
It's unfair to him because if he has an average career, his attachment to Aaron Rodgers will probably be the headline for the majority of his NFL career. And that's not fair to him at all.
Yeah. For sure. Well, hey, Dak is back, looking pretty good on the field. I don't know, man. Every time I want to get on the Dak train, Corey, and you know this as a Cowboys fan, every time I want to get on the Dak train, something derails it. Obviously, I'm not a Cowboys fan to begin with, so it's very easy for me to get derailed from the Dak train. But I like Dak Prescott. I like the way he carries himself. I like his demeanor. And, obviously he's one of the more lucrative players in the league. If he comes back full speed, ready to go, like it looks like he's close to, are the Cowboys a contender?
Contender what?
I'm like this. It is so easy for me to be 100% honest about my Cowboys. They haven't won since I was in college when they won the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott, did he outperform his rookie deal? Hell yes, he outperformed it. Did he do enough for the deal that he got? I can tell you for every time Dak showed me he was a next generation type of talent, he did something that gave me pause. He let Jerry Jones in between 50% trash decisions and plays and 50% damn, only Dak can do those plays. And it was right down the middle. And I said, I got to be honest, I'm pulling for this kid, but he did just as much good work as he did bad work. And it's just a glass half full, half empty. He was not clear cut top 5 NFL quarterback. Give me the money, no questions about it. Dak had serious holes in his game. When Zeke went down and it was all on him, he looked atrocious. He would throw picks at bad times. And the only thing I would say about Dak Prescott's extension is it definitely wouldn't have taken Tony Romo that long to get the love. It shouldn't have taken Dak that long to get the money. But before the injury, I was just really down the middle on him. I love him. Like you said, Saul, you nailed it. He's perfect off the field. He's a great kid, unbelievable story. I'm glad he got his money, but I can't say that he head and shoulders, no questions asked, proved that he should get that contract. I don't think he did. I think leverage was in his favor.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. Cowboy fans certainly had a different tune last year when Ben DiNucci was their starting quarterback on Sunday Night Football. It seemed like Cowboys fans were begging for Dak Prescott to come back then.
Or the Red Rocket, or the Red Rifle, whatever
Andy
they
Dalton.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's addition by subtraction. I can tell you there have been a couple of nights when I was playing ball professionally where I couldn't suit up and the team struggled. And all that made the fans do was like me more. When you're going to be back, see? How's your foot feel? Are you going to be able to play next game? I got all this love because of my absence. That's what happened with Dak. Those guys were so atrocious that we'll live with Dak throwing a pick every other game just to have him back and be able to have some threats. He got a boost from being injured. I really think he did.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. His absence was talked about more than he would have been had he actually played.
For sure.
And I think that kind of leverage right there, I agree with you, is the reason why he definitely got that contract extension. But, hey, I mean, I look at the Cowboys roster, and when you say contend, I'm not sure if this is a team that's going to contend for a Super Bowl, but, I mean, they should very well win the division, right? NFC East is going to be garbage once again. This is all for the Cowboys.
Here's the thing with Dallas. If Dallas can find a way to get off the field on third down, they're going to win a lot of games. I swear to God. Because what happens is you got a lot of different playbooks, right? You got the plays we run when it's even, the plays we run when we're down 7, and the plays we run when we're down 2 or 3 scores. Same with defensive coordinators. You give most defensive coordinators a 3-score lead, they're calling different plays now defensively. The Cowboys will need a multiple possession lead because their defense is going to be trash again. So the question is, can Dallas stay out of third and long? Can they get off the field on third down? And can they get up early? Because we all know the defense isn't going to be that good. I think they can win the NFC. I don't know how much further they'll go beyond that. They don't have that killer instinct.
The NFC East, right?
The NFC East. I'm sorry, the NFC East. But they don't have that.
I'm sure they can get to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if they can win the Super Bowl.
Beyond that.
they can win the NFC East, but I don't know if they can go further than that because you got to have both sides of the ball. And both sides of the ball don't have to be great, but both sides of the ball have to be solid. And Dallas doesn't have that defense.
Well, I think the only team you probably have to worry about is the Washington football team, just because they got Ryan Fitzmagic, and I don't know, whatever team gets Ryan Fitzpatrick, they seem to not be contenders, but they do just well enough to possibly make the playoffs or qualify for the postseason. So I think the Washington football team, and they have a great defense, by the way. So that solid defense with Chase Young at the edge right there, with the offense with Ryan Fitzpatrick as their leader, I think they're going to compete. But I look across the board, I definitely would take Dak Prescott over Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would definitely take Ryan Fitzpatrick over Daniel Jones. And Jalen Hurts, still unproven as an NFL player. Dak Prescott is easily more proven. So across the board, Cowboys have the depth on offense. And like you said, if they can get off on third down and have a bend but don't break defense, they're going to win the NFC East and they're going to go to the playoffs.
It's always Dallas, but Dallas, but Dallas, but there's always a but with Dallas. There just always is. And the years that there isn't,
Damn straight.
somehow, some way, they find a way to insert a but, like when Aaron Rodgers faces you in the playoffs when you're the number one seed in the NFC. Like, there's always something with Dallas since '96. There's just something about Dallas that has just never meshed all the way through full circle to get them to those big wins.
I think the desperation is not there in Dallas. I think, and I've said this before, playing for the Cowboys has got this country club mentality where you've already made it. You're on the golf course, you're sipping tea. It's the Dallas Cowboys. I've arrived. I'm the starting safety for the Cowboys. There's so much hoopla around that team that guys don't play with the same urgency. They feel like they've already arrived. They're best friends with the billionaire owner. So my position coach isn't too much of a worry. The head coach isn't too much of a worry. I know Jerry. Jerry wants me here. Jerry and Steven signed me. I'm good to go. That's not locker room chemistry. A lot can be you can talk about the Patriot way all you want. Just look at the rings. You don't get to complain to Belichick. You can talk to your assistant. You can talk to your position coach. Maybe they'll take your concern to the head coach. But there's a structure and hierarchy in New England that it's all business. Their actual saying is do your job.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just block who you're supposed to block. Catch it if you're supposed to catch it. Kick the field goal if you're supposed to kick it. Do your job. In Dallas, it is a soap opera, and I can't help but think it washes over to the lack of urgency on the field. Talented roster. They do not. Dallas probably uses 45% of their talent max. That's the level they play to in my mind. When you read the names out loud on paper and then you watch them play, there's this mega gap between what's on paper, what these guys can do, and the fact that they're losing all the time.
There's only one team in the NFL where their owner does a post-game interview after literally every game. Only one team, and that's Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
And now
it's a circus with that team.
I will watch Hard Knocks. I love the show. I'll watch Hard Knocks. They don't need cameras in training camp. Dallas needs to quietly just walk into Tampa Bay and try to hang around and keep it close. They don't need a lot of hoopla and hype. I hope Dak, because on a personal level, I like him so much. I hope he's 100%. Zeke saying he's now trim and slim and ready to be the Zeke of old. I thought he was sandbagging last year. Like, I'm not going to get banged up in a year that I know we're not going anywhere. I'm going to wait for my homie to get back, and then I'm going to lace him up and run for real because he was running like trash last year. So we'll see.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, before we wrap it all up, a couple things to get to. We could get into the NIL stuff, but we won't because that's way too in depth, and that's probably just a show in itself. Go ahead, Corey.
They don't see it. They did not think this out. The quarterback to be at Alabama is contracted at nearly $1 million. He hasn't played one snap.
Mm-hmm.
What this will do to the recruiting landscape in the next 2 years for college sports?
I know. Now, to be fair, there's only 4 or 5 schools where if you go to as a quarterback, you'll get that kind of recognition and money, Alabama being one of them, maybe Notre Dame, Clemson, LSU, Oklahoma, maybe Texas. Maybe those 6, right? Everybody else is kind of like that second tier in terms of notoriety, okay? Because you can't dispute that Texas is one of the most popular schools in the country, especially when you're talking about football, right? Like that's a football school, a football state, like that is Texas, right? So I get that, but the thing to your point and what I was always worried about, and I'm going to agree with you on this, there are schools out there that are going to have a significant advantage because they just come with a lot of attention all the time. And if I go to a place like that, I know I'm going to get recognized. Thus, I know I'm going to get paid because there's going to be people that want to associate in an indirect way with that school. You can't put Alabama on anything when it comes to this kid, right? But everybody knows that this kid is going to be playing as the quarterback at Alabama. So it is an unfair landscape. How do teams like TCU or Arizona or Boise State compete with something like that? They just can't. They just can't.
And Saul, why do you think Texas and Oklahoma are rumored to leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC? That's where all the money is. That's where all the money is.
And I'll do you guys even one better. Take sports and put it to the side and just look at media markets. And what advantage does USC have over, because it's in Los Angeles?
Mm-hmm.
The money you can throw a second string defensive player on football with billboards, endorsements. There are so many more marketing opportunities in Los Angeles. The guy doesn't even have to be that good. In a normal situation, he'd opt to go somewhere else because he could actually play. But if you put together a financial package, he'll sit on the bench at USC and make $100,000 a year. That money's not available in Corvallis, Oregon, or Pullman.
But what I will say though, Corey, is that here in the early going, some of these sponsor deals aren't even school related or area related, because there's been some big money deals to student athletes who have built their own social media following, and they've done it in a very clever way, like the twins from Fresno State who have over 3-4 million followers across platforms. And there's another kid too, a gentleman, I want to say Central Florida or something like that. Same thing. He had like 8 million followers across social media, and he's getting paid as well. So there is an avenue if you are creative in that space. And the University of Arizona, only because I have this knowledge and because they're local, they have a program, and I know a lot of schools have this program where they teach you how to market yourself in order to be able to take advantage of these NIL rules. And so I think it's a good problem in some aspects, but there's a lot of, it was just so rushed because the NCAA once again was ill prepared to take this on and understand the ramifications from top to bottom and what this could mean. If Texas and OU leave for the SEC, what's to say like Notre Dame or other schools won't follow suit, and all of a sudden you have a mega power conference in the Southeast, and then you have a couple other conferences that they're cute, but they're not this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right. The expansion of the playoff means you don't have to be perfect to make the Final Four. You just have to do well in the SEC, and you'll be in the 8, and you'll be in there. So you can lose a game and still make the college football playoffs if you're in the right conference. Yeah. That's really the end game.
For sure. All right, and then last thing. The Olympics Sunday morning, 5:00, 5 a.m. I should say, at least here local time in Arizona. The U.S. Olympic men's basketball team will take on France, who did beat them last time they faced them last year. So Devin Booker, Middleton and Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday actually arrived there at 11 o'clock last night, our time.
What an awkward plane ride.
Right? So what's so funny is my guys from Milwaukee flew across the country to Seattle. Devin Booker flew to Seattle. They met up there, and then they flew 9 hours to get to Japan. That probably wasn't a comfortable plane ride. But how do you like Team USA's chances in the Olympics this year? And Justin's already shaking his head. He has no belief at all.
I don't like it. I get it. I mean, they are exhibition games, but man, there's no reason why Team USA shouldn't beat Team Australia by 15 to 20 points. And I get it, Australia has 8 NBA players on their team, but we're still talking about dudes like Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard, and now you're about to add guys like Middleton and Drew Holiday. I mean, the roster is just so superior to the other countries, and it always has been that way since the USA added NBA players to its Team USA basketball roster. They lost to Australia, Nigeria, and who else did they lose to in the exhibition games?
That was it, just those two.
Just those two? Mm-hmm. I'm not liking what I'm seeing, and they're already down a couple of dudes because of health and safety protocols. So
no, they're all back.
They're all back. Zach LaVine's back too?
Everybody's back, yep.
Okay. Well, then let's see it. I'm not confident.
I'm not as confident either, but it's not for the reasons that Justin stated. Actually, what Justin stated is the whole problem. The perception of American athletes versus the reality is the real issue. Our guys are part of a massive media machine. At some point, you still have to step on the court and play basketball. So Americans, how could they lose to this team? How could they lose to that team? I can tell you the gap between international play and NBA play is pretty much non-existent. And I know that that's hard for proud Americans to process, but get over yourselves. The best basketball players in the world do come to the NBA. We cannot simply say we have a lock on basketball like we did 30 years ago. We have not progressed. When you watch half-court fundamental basketball, all that athleticism goes out the window and is ineffective. The international basketball is a completely different way to play than what you see in the I call the AAU senior circuit, which is the NBA. So when they get into international play and they struggle because they see zone defenses, it's very cerebral. It's all about spacing. Oh, they haven't played together. No. The truth is, one of the coldest players in the league. How old is Doncic?
Like 24, 25.
25-year-old kid is probably one of the coldest dudes in the NBA, and he's not even from here. So I don't know where Americans get off thinking this is going to be a cakewalk because it's Kevin Durant, it's Kyrie. They got ball players too. Our gap is not what people think it is. So when you see the upsets, everybody's like, oh my God, this is horrible basketball. Team USA, they're not that good. How did they lose to Nigeria? How did they lose? I played overseas for 12 years. I can tell you right now, some of the coldest players in the world never come to the NBA. But we have this massive media machine that fixates on the NBA and promotes these guys as the best players. I can tell you right now, you could replace 40% of the NBA with international players that are just as skilled, if not better. If you're in Spain, Italy, or Greece making $1-2 million a year, you don't really want to come to the NBA and make league minimum. You're the man over there. And you don't have to believe me. Just watch the Olympics.
It's true.
People think that the perception, it's not the 80s where a Vlade Divac or Sabonis comes over or Petrovic comes over. These guys play fundamental basketball, and they study the game. They play it the way we used to play it. Now we have AAU guys that go one and done. They get to the league. You can talk to Popovich. You can talk to Steve Kerr off the record. The level of skill that these guys are coming into the NBA with is embarrassing. We had a guy make $29 million a year that couldn't make a free throw for the Sixers.
Yeah.
In what era in life?
But he's Australian.
It does. My point. But that's not how we spin. Oh, Ben Simmons. I remember being on ESPN, we having to hype Ben Simmons at LSU. I watched 2 games and I didn't understand why they were hyping him. I said, he's tall and he can rebound and he throws nice passes, but I don't see him being a dominant NBA player. And now that the dust is settled, people are like, we need to trade Ben Simmons. And I'm not trying to knock Ben, but what I'm saying is, Giannis, 2-time MVP that airballs free throws in the finals.
Greek.
But can anybody stop him?
You can't.
Name an American center that's better. Name a power.
I was going to say Joel Embiid's Cameroonian.
When you talk, if you look at it from a national standpoint and put the flag and get all of our American-born guys and line them up, our stars are all international in the NBA. Dame Lillard is American. I'm not even going to put Anthony Davis out there. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Devin Booker, these guys, okay, they're household names, they're there, but some of the most dominant players in the league aren't even from here. And it didn't used to be that way. But Americans don't realize that every team has 3 or 4 international players on it now.
But the other thing to this too is that, a lot of these players just got done playing a season, right? So they haven't been able to establish the continuity that some of the, like Nigeria's been playing together for a year and a half, 2 years, you know what I mean? And they add their stars because there's only a couple of them compared to the U.S. team, which completely is assembled. Okay, so there's that factor. So chemistry is an issue. It is. You have to, and now you're adding 3 new dudes, right, that just flew across, and now they're going to show up and they're going to try and play tomorrow, and that have not been practicing and have not been playing with the team as well. So there's a continuity and a chemistry issue there, and that's where I think the falsehood of we're better than everybody comes in. People think you could just plug and play, and we've seen that too many times. I think back to the Philadelphia Eagles I want to say 2012 or something like that. When they free agency opened and they signed everybody, Nnamdi Asomugha and all these dudes, and they had like a team and they couldn't win shit. Nothing. You know what I mean? It's because they didn't have the collective chemistry, because they didn't understand that you can't just plug and play players at a position. And yeah, you might have upgraded at a position, but chemistry wise and organizational wise and schematically, it just did not fit. And so that's what I think ultimately, I think Team USA will figure this out. I think they'll be fine against France tomorrow. I think they'll beat France tomorrow, which is their main competition in this first round of 3, because they got Iran next, whatever. And then they got Czechoslovakia, I believe, after that, or the Czech Republic, which will be a contest. But I think in the end, I still expect the U.S. to win a gold medal, because their best players are better than everybody else's best players. And at the end of the day, I'm going to give the ball to KD, and there ain't nobody on the planet that can stop KD, and that's that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take your bet, and we'll wager a 6-pack of ice cold Dr. Pepper. USA will drop a couple games, and I'm going to tell you why. There's something to be said for continuity, but there's also, basketball is a game of will. It's a game of wills. And when you have players representing their country, there's a certain level of intensity they play with. Yeah. Our players do not seem to have that level of intensity. The Olympics is some throw-in stuff they do after the NBA season. As opposed to Barcelona with the Dream Team, we have the flag across our chest. We're going out to establish American dominance in basketball. We are representing our country. We know who we're representing, why we're here, the message that we're going to send. We're going to destroy everybody by 40 points.
I don't know about that, Corey.
These guys don't care as much as previous Olympians.
You can't sit there and tell me that Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Devin Booker don't care if they just came off the NBA Finals and they are willing to fly all the way across the country, all the way across the world to go compete for their country. You can't sit there and tell me that. There's just no way.
I'm not saying. Well, you said the key word. They're willing to. That's the difference in mentality. Why did Nigeria beat United States and celebrate like it was 1999? Because they have a whole different level of perspective.
But it's an exhibition.
But not to them. They will talk about the time that they beat America for the rest of their lives.
But Corey, you know this as a professional athlete and a college athlete at a very high level. There are certain games and there's certain coaches that understand this, where you will play in a game and listen. Internally, I don't really give a shit what happens in this game. Like, I just want us to be able to execute and work on some of our sets and our plays, so that way we feel comfortable. So when pressure does get high, we can execute at a higher level. So whether we win this game or not doesn't really matter. And that's why I think, and Draymond Green kind of pointed that out as well. He said, listen, we learned a lot in these losses, but it's also because we were able to work on a lot of things that we needed to work on, because you can only do the same thing so many times in practice when you're playing against the same players who know every single set. It's just like, you got to get into the game and kind of get into a flow, and you got to work that stuff out. And that's why I think ultimately that will be beneficial that they lost these 2 games, because they understand, like, we do have to play at a higher level. And I still, in my heart, I'm always going to believe that they want to be there. Otherwise they wouldn't do it. I'd rather be. You only got 2 months left until the NBA season. And Devin Booker has no reason to go play in the Olympics right now, outside of he's never played in the Olympics before. And I think he wants to do that, so that way he can add to his legacy.
Yeah. We have a very interesting proposition that we can observe. I can tell you as a player now, I've never played for my country, but there's a huge difference between playing for your country and playing for a check. See, in the NBA, they play for a check, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about the approach of the international player, who from a very young age is plucked from his family, trained by the state, promoted in the national games as a youth, he's given all the support of an entire nation to go to Tokyo or go to the World Games and basically represent our country. That's a vibe that we don't have here in the States, just plain and simple. So these guys are playing for a country. And I can tell you the intensity. I've played practice games for the Belgian national team when they assembled the national team, all the top Belgian players. And I was like, why don't you do that in our league play? oh, well, this is different. We're playing France. I'm representing Belgium. I'm going all out. You don't make threes like that and take charges and dunk on people. But I came to the national game, and all of you guys are super studs in the damn national game. And then in league play, y'all pass the ball to me, be like, yo, see, get that. And it was amazing to watch. But then I realized their families, the flag, the anthem, the colors of the uniform, or the Belgian, like it's a whole different vibe when you suit up for your country. So now I'm not saying that our guys don't want to be there. I'm just, okay, they got on the plane, they went. Nobody is putting themselves in that much of harm's way when you're making $35, $40 million a year at your day job. That's what I'm fearful of, that type of effort coming from those guys who are out there making business decisions, and these other guys are out here trying to bring glory to their country. That's the difference in intensity that I see. But, we'll find out, because I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right, because I want them to represent the USA. I don't want anybody to get to get wins against Team USA. I want them to be successful, and I hope they just bring their lunch pail and put it into work. I don't know.
I agree with you, Corey, to a certain degree, but I have this feeling, right? When you're there and you're in the Olympic Games and you see all the pageantry and all the countries and all the drama and just the fierceness of wanting to represent your country, even the opening ceremonies yesterday, I just feel like as from a human element, you can't help but be like, we got to represent. Like, we got to represent.
That emotion kicks in, absolutely.
Yes,
You hope that for sure. The butterflies take hold, and Kevin Durant gives me that same performance that he gave the Bucks in Game 6. You know what I'm saying? Is he gonna bring that Kevin Durant to Tokyo? Because that's the Durant that makes $40 million a year. Yeah. I love to see those moves in Tokyo. Yeah. It reminds me of one summer I was home at LA Fitness and a kid threw a lob and I just watched it sail out of bounds. He's like, yo, big man, you're supposed to go up and dunk that. I said, bro, that's a salary move. We at LA Fitness. I don't do that in summer. That's a salary move, fam. I'm not catching no lob on people at LA Fitness in the summer playing for free. And you, as a professional, you are always in that mode. My body is my business. How much of my business am I going to give in Tokyo?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, there are always the Olympic Games where Team USA does have the drop-off, right? Because 2004, they ended up getting bronze, I think. And they had guys like LeBron James, Richard Jefferson, Emeka Okafor. And then 2008 comes around, and then you have what's called the Redeem Team with Kobe and LeBron, and then obviously they were dominant there. So, I mean, there is always that year or that Olympics where they drop off, and maybe this is the year. But going back to Saul's point, yeah, while the international talent has improved significantly over the last couple of decades, and while there are a couple of NBA guys on each and every team, Team USA collectively still has the better talent, and they should go out and just mosh everybody. So that's just where I stand.
Here's my point. Give me my pick of all the international players. My 5 is going to bash the All-American team. Hands down. Won't even be close. I can take
that's the international all-star team, though.
I don't care.
Like,
but if to destroy the world, then it shouldn't matter, right?
That's different. That you're literally taking like Luka.
Yes.
I don't even know if
Jokic, Giannis,
right there. It's over.
But those guys aren't in the Olympics right now. Let's take a look at the guys who are in the Olympics right now. You could take the best international player from each roster, and I'm still taking Team USA every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what?
The guys in the Olympics right now, you take the best player from each roster, put them on a team together. I still like Team USA.
I got you. See, I like your patriotism. But you know what? Patriotism don't get buckets. You got to go do it. You can't just wave the flag and the buckets actually appear. You got to box out. You got to rebound. You got to defend. What did Herm Edwards say? You pay. I
see what you did there. All right. And with that, that is another episode of the Total BS Podcast. I appreciate you guys for joining me today. You can follow Justin Spears at Justin E Sports on Twitter. Same thing with College Corey. You can follow him or Corey Williams, I should say. You can follow him at College Corey on Twitter. You can follow me at Saul_Bookman as well on Twitter. And then follow the show at Total BS Pod. Justin, tell them where else they can find us.
Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, but also please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. That's where we have our live show. We always appreciate comments and interaction from our listeners. So YouTube is definitely the way to go to subscribe to Total BS Podcast. And also the Facebook live stream is always jumping as well. So make sure you like and follow us there as well.
Yeah, until next time, we will see you when we see you. Peace.
Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping at the